Hello, my name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education and Research Center at Murray State University, and welcome to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and our local partners, Sprocket Innovation in Paducah and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. Last week, as we wrapped up 2021, I had shared with you that I wanted to talk about privacy, data privacy, what that means. How does that look in a technology world? What do we expect to be private? What's the law say? Some of those issues as we start out January in 2022, and talk a little bit about how do we take some of those basic steps, not only to protect our privacy, our customers' privacy, but also how we address some of those the protections for some of those predictions that we talked about last time as well. So today I want to talk about privacy. And you know, if I asked each of you to define privacy, everybody's going to come back with a little bit of a different answer about what privacy means to them. So, how would you define privacy? Is it something that you have different pieces that you want um, to keep private? How does it? What does it mean to you for something to be private? Does that mean that nobody can get to it? Nobody can get to it unless you give them permission. It means that the government can't get to it, but maybe a private company can. Maybe it's your family can get to it, but a company can't. Whatever it means, we all have something that privacy is a little bit different. And frankly, privacy is becoming more and more important, but also harder and harder to find. So when I say items should be uh, private, what items do you expect to remain private? Now, legally, we talk about PII, our personally identifiable information, our social security number, our name, our address, those pieces that can uniquely identify us. There is an expectation by companies to keep that private. There's a legal requirement to keep that data private. Medical, financial information, there are legal requirements to keep that data private. We expect our voting, our academic records, our employment records, we expect those items to remain private. Those are expectations that we've had. Those have been around, frankly, for quite a while that we have those expectations. But what about some of these other things? What about your car or your phone movements? Is it okay if somebody knows where your phone is all the time? I remember several years ago when somebody found out that my wife and I know where our each other's phones are, and they thought, I wouldn't want anybody to know where I am. Well, it's my wife. I trust her. It's okay for her to have that, but it's different for her to have that versus somebody, the government or a company. What about everything you purchase at the grocery? There was a time when grocery stores like Kroger's started giving you a Kroger card, and there was a lot of pushback about the privacy of that. Are they going to give this data to the insurance company to show how fat I am or how bad and unhealthy the food is that I'm eating? That's kind of gone away for a variety of reasons. Some good, some bad. Some it's just been normalized. What about ads based on your search history? Google does it all the time. Your internet browsing history. Google does it all the time. Is it okay to have that? Is it okay for Facebook to have ads based on what you're looking at? All of those things are things that we have become, I won't say immune to, but more accepting of than perhaps we should. I'm in the same boat with everybody else. What about your emails? Google started a new policy where they are now searching all emails for um, certain types of material, child sexual exploitation type material. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, if there is a child predator or a predator that's preying on children, yes, I want them caught. But the question becomes, where can that stop? What about searching for threats against the president. Okay, that's okay. What about discussion of breaking into a store that's being done in email, or a bomb threat, or um, all of those things sound good, but if you get to the point where it's also being used for something in the wrong, such as looking for somebody that doesn't, if it's a person in political power and they're using that to go after their political enemies, then obviously that's bad. Is it okay in email? But what about your online file storage? If you use Gmail, or a Google Drive, or Dropbox, or iCloud, where can it stop? Actually, I think Apple may be doing that with iCloud as well. I think, or at least we're talking about it. I think I read in an article. Where does it stop and where is it okay? The question really is, what do we expect to remain private? Now, most of these items, there's not an expectation of privacy that is on the screen right now. The prior screen, absolutely. On this screen, not so much. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'll get into that. But what is privacy? From a from a definition standpoint, there's a bunch of definitions, but it's about limiting access to personal information to authorized uses. So if somebody has an authorized, and there's some definitions that go along with authorized too that we could get into, but if it's for an authorized use, then it's okay to get access to that information. An easy example of that is healthcare. If you go to your doctor and your doctor refers you to a heart doctor, then that heart doctor would have a real reason to access your health records. So that would probably be okay. But, a foot doctor would not, if that's not the type of doctor that you're being referred to. So that person would not have an authorized use of your data. Privacy is maintaining the confidentiality of personal information specifically, as opposed to all sensitive data in general. And that's what we're just talking about. On those two slides before, it really highlights the differences between what is specifically covered for privacy and what is kind of in general as well. Uh, there's a term that you hear a lot. It's right to privacy. And honestly, we don't have a right to privacy. We do have an implied right to privacy. The Constitution doesn't list a specific right to privacy, but it is interpreted in a variety of ways, and that is important. The one that we see the most is the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. So the government can't come search your phone without a search warrant, can't search your home without a reasonable need to search your home. But what's important to note is that this search and seizure is is by the government. It doesn't apply to Google. It doesn't apply to Facebook. It doesn't apply to Apple. It doesn't apply to any private company. That's a difference. Now there are some laws, and you see a bunch of acronyms below that do apply to some of our companies, like HIPAA. HIPAA applies to insurance companies. There's laws that apply to educational companies, to banking companies, financial services companies. But in general, there's not a right to privacy, and that is a concern to a lot of people. And what it really comes down to is, what should your company do? What should you do? Um, what's the right thing to do? And that is really where we're at in most states in our country. This map I took from the New York Times. There's the New York Times had a good article recently on state privacy legislation tracker. So what that means is there are 3 states, California, Colorado, and Virginia, that have actually passed data privacy legislation. What that means is it broadens, so it's not just PII data or PHI data, health data. It's bigger than that. Outside of those 3 states, in most states, companies can use, share, and sell any data they collect about you without notifying you that they're doing so. A lot of times you'll sign or agree to acceptable use policy, and then that lets them do what they want. There's no national law that standardizes when or if a company must notify you that your data is breached or exposed to unauthorized parties. Now, I think all states have a data breach notification, so that's going to happen. But there's not a standard across the country. It's different state by state. Um, and if a company shares your data, including sensitive information like your health or location, with third parties, those third parties can further sell it and share it without notifying you as well. So you don't have a great understanding of handle where your data is. That's scary from a personal privacy standpoint. But now let's fast forward to a company. A company can do this. But what I'm asking you, for those that own small businesses, those that own are decision makers in organizations, that's watching this, it becomes about doing the right thing. It becomes about what are the steps that I should take as a organization, as a custodian or an owner of this data, to do the right thing by our customers. In the coming years, I think doing the right thing, protecting our customer data, is going to become more and more and more important. Not just names, not just the PII data, but all of it. Only use what you need. Only collect what you need. Protect it. Take the appropriate steps to protect that data. And it's not free. It's going to cost, but doing the right thing has a value to it. And I would just implore you and each company to do that. On the flip side, individuals that are watching this, thinking about the privacy of your data, look at those companies, see what they're doing, see if they're doing the right thing, without legislation, without requirements. Are they doing the right thing to protect your data? Maybe that's who you should choose to do business with. Anyway, just a thought. Next week we'll start talking about some of those steps that we could take as organizations to start protecting some of this data. Some of these things we're going to talk about last year, but I want to reinforce it because it's still relevant. It's still things that we need to think about, and maybe we'll get into more privacy data as well. If you have questions on data privacy, let me know. If you have any thoughts on topics that you'd like to hear about, let me know, and we'll try to cover that on a future 10 at 10. Thank you for joining today, and look forward to seeing you again on 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye.